Hi everyone, hope you're well. Again, I'm having problems with Facebook. I don't know if everyone is or it's just one of those things. But anyway, really great to see you all here, and I look forward to really great things coming up very soon, actually. And a big warm welcome to our newest member, Michael Pagel. Really look forward to seeing the things that you would like to achieve in your future. Uh, Really just great to have more people growing into the group because, this has been a long time coming, and I really want to help 3,000 people get to the $3 million type home, $10 million type liquid cash lifestyle, plus the health and relationships that actually support that, so that as you grow through those different stages, you're able to progressively add strength to strength rather than get all the way up there and have these people in your circle that aren't really healthy to have at that level. You know, it is a really big thing to really take care of over time, because just by understanding that this entire group is made for that type of purpose, you really you're really acknowledging the fact that things do need to change. That being stuck where we are isn't necessarily the best thing for ourselves. We want more out of our life experience. So, as with everyone, I highly suggest you find the guides and files section of the group and print off the list of 100, where you fill out the list of 100 health, wealth, and relationships, and lists of 100 experiences you'd like to have in this lifetime that don't necessarily fit into those categories. And you basically just go through and work out where you are in health, wealth, and relationships now versus where you'd like to be ideally. What does the greatest picture of your future really look like? So, for an example, my wife and I, we plan on living to 100 and 110, right? So we've studied the green zones around the world where they regularly live to that age. All right, and they have primarily 90% vegetables, 10%, 5% meat, and 5% fruit as a fairly easy guideline to follow. And that varies as to what types of fruits, vegetables, and meats per region of these cultures that you study. So things like that, and so when we were learning a lot about that, we realized, well, we're already in our 20th year of our relationship, and we worked out a couple of years ago that yes, we're still growing together, we're wanting to grow together forward through our ups and downs. We work those things out, and we realized that, well, if we're going to aim for that, then we need to make sure we make a relationship that sustains that. And that doesn't mean just a relationship with each other. That means all of our relationships, our friendships, our social circle, and our kids. We don't want to be put into a nursing home after we turn 65. We don't want to have the obligation phone calls from kids and grandkids saying, oh, it's been a while, we want to catch up. No, we want our kids and grandkids to actually call us up saying, where the hell are you? We'd like to go jet skiing with you, or skydiving, or use those squirrel suit things, or zip line across one of those big mountains in Peru. Where are you, Nan and Granddad? We want to go see you because you're lots of fun to hang around. We want those types of interactions for our future, and we want the wealth to support that, which is why we say the 3 and the 10 million levels as a baseline, as a guide, because really $1 million is not what it used to be anymore, and really the beginnings of proper wealth that you can give to like generations after you really does start at the levels of $3 million type home and $10 million type liquid cash lifestyle, if you set everything up right. And I know how to do those things, so that's why I'm trying to teach all of it together, because I'm also seeing a lot of people getting really tired of these change your life in 21 days bullshit things, right, that don't work, right? When I help people, I like to help in every way I can. I go as deep as I possibly can into who you are, where you are at, and work out what things are really blocking you at the moment. Now, on that, the last few days, there's been quite a pattern in a lot of the conversations of people saying that they're really busy, right? And that they haven't caught up this or that. Right. Well, in a a normal context, there are the ones that don't want to learn and grow that will fill their day up and then fill the rest of the day up with TV. However, this group is not for normals. We are for the ones that are wanting to grow, to learn, and to expand our potential into real life actual experiences, right? And that means that if you're growing and you're learning and you're doing the best you can and you feel like you're basically just treading water and doesn't feel like you're getting anywhere, then most likely you have an anxiety type block or a mindset type block that is really getting in the way of your progress. Okay? And the manifestation of that is being too busy, right? The next level of that is you end up being people pleasing for everyone around you, but not actually doing any of the things you want to do, right? And when you realize that, hold on, other people should be responsible for some shit around here too, then you kind of like take a step back and you go, hold on, how is my day actually arranged, right? And it really does require that. You need to sit back and just take a look about what activities you're doing on a day-to-day basis that really could be rearranged. Okay, so for example, you've got, say you're a 1 or 2 adult person and you've got 3 kids or something, and the kids are over the age of 10, well, that should mean that the beginnings of the washing and dishes and those types of things should be a shared experience, right? And you can kind of like start like letting the kids understand what responsibility actually feels like and looks like by letting them actually assist you, right? And that doesn't mean like some of the old styles of attachment based relationship houses used to be demand this, demand that. It doesn't actually work in the long term, and basically you're just making it so that when you do get into your 50s and 60s and whatever, they won't actually want to visit you at those stages. Alright? Whereas if you're just having so much fun doing the things you know you need to do, like for example, Kelly and I will put the music on when we do the dishes or we do some housework, and when we had our kids at home and our friends' kids, they actually tend to join in with us in participating in these things because we're having so much fun doing it. And then it's done quicker and no one, there's no stress about it because we've made it a fun activity, and we've made it so that if we don't have music, then we're asking them about how their day is, right? And actually genuinely interested as to how they're feeling, what they're doing. Are they having boyfriend or girlfriend issues? Are they having problems at school, right? And by making sure you're showing the genuine interest, they tend to actually just follow what you're doing. So if you're doing the dishes, they will actually pick up tea towels and those types of things, right, along the way. But they have to feel like they're invited to do it, not demanded, right? And this is where like teaching people how to do the effective relationships type thing, and like how to do really good communication. So like, for example, Kelly and I haven't had any actual arguments in 18, 19 years, but that doesn't mean we haven't had serious discussions, okay? What happens is that we realized that we didn't want to upset each other very early on. We didn't actually want to have a relationship like our parents had, right? We wanted to have a healthy, functioning, highly communicable relationship with a really great sex life and everything else. Well, to have all those things, we needed to learn straight away a better way to communicate. And the easiest way we both realized was to actually sit each other down, have a cup of coffee or a tea, right, together, and actually sit and discuss our things properly, right? And when you sit down, it tends to take the energy out of the discussion, and you get a lot more progress in your relationship and the way you relate to each other, okay? And because we're not upsetting each other when we're having these discussions, it means that we are pretty much ready to go, and, we can have sex whenever we want, more often, work permitting and whatever, that type of stuff, but we fit it all in. But like the point is and stuff, we can do those types of things more often, and we're inviting each other to do so more often because we're never upsetting each other. We're not I mean, we may say something out of turn that is a nuanced type thing. It's not that we don't, mean to hurt or anything and stuff. And the other one would say, look, that actually, is not on. Can you come sit down with me? Right? Yeah, no worries. Cool. And we sit it out and we make sure that it doesn't happen again. But the point is and stuff, it grows respect. The more you can actually do these types of communications with your partner relationships, with other relationships, with your friendships, and with your kids and extended family and everything else, right? It doesn't work, however, with people that don't want to grow, okay? So if you're the one growing and the other person simply isn't, they just want to turn everything into a fight, well, that's just a no-win scenario, and it means you're basically growing ahead of where they'll ever be. Okay? And you've got a couple of choices there. You can either accept them for who they are as they are and know that that's just going to be a part of it for the rest of their life experience that you share with them, or you make the simple choice and cut them off and say, look, I want better for myself, I want better experiences for myself, my kids, and everyone else around me, and you grow forward and you make it so that the blockage in the doorway is no longer there, therefore making space for new other growing persons to be welcomed into your life experience. You don't have to share a life experience for the entire rest of your life if someone's clearly toxic. Okay? Learn what you can from the experience, do the forgiveness letters type exercise, and let them go so that they can go on to have the rest of their life experience and you can go on towards better life experiences for yourself. Okay? You do not ever have to settle, for any toxic bullshit. Okay? If you want better for your life, the time is now to actually sit down and work out, well, if I want better for my life, what does that look like? Okay? And this goes back to what I was saying earlier about being busy, right? You'll find that the majority of toxic people around you are also lazy, right? And what they like to do, those types of personalities, is give persons that are hardworking, persevering, and quite resilient, they like to dump most of their things onto your lap and make you do all their work, all right? It's just what they do. It's their nature, all right? Keeping in mind that they are still under the impression that they're doing the absolute best that they can for that day, even if their best sucks. All right? You cannot control other persons, but you can accept them the way that they are, and that makes them way less frustrating to deal with when you realize their behavior is normal for the type of person that they are. All right? If they think they're still doing the absolute best that they can, right? And you've tried as hard as you possibly can to inspire them to want to do better and nothing has changed, then that person's not going to want to change until they decide to want to change for themselves. Nothing you say or do from that point is going to change that. Okay? But if you want better for yourself, it then becomes, once you accept that as is, right? Once you accept that as that's the way they are, that's the way they choose to be, and I love and appreciate them as they are. However, I need to also give myself self-care. Therefore, if I wish to improve my life, my circumstances, and I do want that $3 million type home, $10 million type liquid cash lifestyle, and the health and relationships around me that support that and don't suck that dry, then I need to make some serious plans as to how I'm going to make that happen, and then break it down into step by step, work out who the hell around me is not pulling their own weight when they've been given a responsibility and then just leave it for yourself to do. It's time to start setting those boundaries as well and give them the responsibilities that they promised that they would do, or that you've agreed with them that they would do. Okay? The more you enforce boundaries, the more time you'll actually free up to do the things you need to do to get this type of lifestyle that I'm trying to help people create. Alright? And funnily enough, the more respect you receive from the people around you, the more you do this. Because all of a sudden, once you start putting healthy boundaries in place and you don't just do their fucking stuff, right? And you make it so that you do the things that you can do and the things that you've agreed to do, and they do the things that they said they were going to do and don't just leave it for you, they actually start respecting you more, right? You will see some improvements, but they still haven't agreed to change, so they've just respected your boundaries. That's not change, that's just respecting the boundary. Okay, that doesn't mean they're growing, it just means that they're not sure how to get past that boundary because they've tried as long as they could possibly do it, and they can't think of another way to get past your boundary again. That's what they're trying to do. It does not mean that they've tried, it does not mean that they've grown, it just means that they've stopped pushing that particular boundary and they're trying to look for another hole in the fence. Okay? All you need to do is recognize the responsibility you need to have for the boundaries you need to create. Right? And that's completely within your control as to how much you allow. Okay? If you want a nice firm boundary that's respected, then that needs to be communicated everywhere that it's been currently being broken. Once you do this, then you can realize, I actually have more time than I realize. Then it's time to put that particular time to best use. Okay? So if you also take on board the idea of what Kelly and I did 12, 13 years ago of getting rid of the TV and the couch, well, that frees up a whole bunch of time where you can learn new things, you can do your list of 100, you can do the forgiveness exercises, and that will progress you into these levels of energetically separating yourself from these toxic personalities and allow you to grow forward into the type of person that could handle the responsibility of a $3 million type home and $10 million type liquid cash type lifestyle with the health and relationships to support that. Because it doesn't just happen, right? There is almost no lottery winners around the entire planet that have been able to successfully turn it into further wealth. Usually, like 99.999% of the time, they have lost it all and they're back to wherever the broke state they were in. Okay, and you've seen them, right? They're the ones that they get their lottery ticket and they go, oh, I don't know, I'll just probably still go back to work tomorrow, because they've got no idea what to do with it. Right? And that's what happens there. All their friends, all their family, all their associates, that weird person's cousin's hairdresser comes out of the woodwork and takes all the resources, and they're usually left worse off than where they were. Right? Whereas all the self-made millionaires and billionaires have put healthy boundaries in place to get from here to there to there to there. Right? They understand that every relationship, friendship, social interaction you have is a sharing of life experience for a particular amount of time. Some of them you'll spend 3 minutes with of a conversation before it gets exhausting. Some of them you can spend 3 hours with. Some of them you can spend 3 days with. Some of them it doesn't even matter how much time you spend with them because you get along with them so well in every way. So, for example, myself and Kelly, we can have conversations and for hours and hours and hours. We've had points and stuff where we had to grow through to work out the interesting things about each other. But once those issues were resolved, it's back to being able to talk about anything for hours and hours and hours, or just accept that she'd like to do something different for the moment, and I want to do something different for the moment. You know, you don't have to, there are so many different ways to make it so that you can have great relationships, great friendships, great interactions with your kids and everyone else. That doesn't mean they have to know everything about you, just the things that's relevant to that connection. All right? Just the idea of choosing a relationship with someone, choosing to spend time with someone in your life experience, means you're choosing to create a relationship that will end. Because we don't live forever, right? Most of the relationships around the entire world, they average 2 years, 9 months, because that's pretty much as long as the honeymoon energy will sustain itself. And there's only 2% around the world that are actually married for 20 years or longer. Okay, it tells you that there's a lot more work involved than what you see in the movies and what your friends say and those sorts of things. Okay? Now, how does relating to being busy relate to anxiety? Well, Anxiety builds up within us when we're scared to have the conversations that we need to have to set the boundaries in a healthy position. One, about a boundary that works for yourself and the other connection has to be mutually agreed upon. And those discussions can be tricky. All right? And this is where the anxiety builds up. This is where it turns into people pleasing. However, the easiest thing you can do is choose the easier connections first, where you'd like to just set those boundaries properly, right? And practice with the easier connections first of saying, look, I would like to sit down with you and have a discussion about something. Can you have a coffee or a tea or something with me? All right? And you sit down and you have the discussion. Don't stand up, because standing up has a higher potential of turning into an argument. Sitting down with someone takes that energetic feeling away, and it's a lot more patient a feel to have that conversation back and forth, where it's mutually respected and listened to, and each person will feel heard, because you're sitting and first and foremost you're enjoying each other's company in that way a lot more. And if you've got the coffee or the tea, then you can quite simply have a sip of your drink to buy that extra time to let them say their piece, the things that they need to say, or vice versa. Okay? So you can choose those easier connections first and work out, okay, where could we set the boundary here where, like, you understand your position, I understand my position, and we're responsible for this, you're responsible for that. Right? Things we will do. These are the things we'll do together. These are the things and stuff I'd like you to take care of. This is the thing I'd like to take care of. Okay? So another one's example is that, so with doing the dishes, right? I prefer to wash, Kelly prefers to dry. Right? So knowing that means it's no longer a discussion as to who's doing the dishes. It was a thing of, hey honey, would you mind drying while I wash the dishes? Okay? That's an invitation to just do something that gets something done around the house, makes the house look tidier, cleaner, neater. But it also opens the opportunity for extra discussion to happen, where, we don't have to have a serious discussion at that time. It can be a discussion about absolutely anything, right? But discussions where you need to place boundaries, those ones you need to sit down for. Okay? You can choose to have easier discussions to sit down for as well, and I highly recommend it, because that way, when you invite someone to sit down, it's not just for the serious discussions, right? Kind of like when, as you grow up and stuff, and someone uses all three of your names, you know you're in trouble. You don't want that. You want to know that this person respects you enough to actually want to sit down and actually grow the relationship with you, regardless of whether it's a serious conversation or a light-hearted one. Okay? But those anxieties can build up if the discussions aren't had when they need to be had. And then if they aren't had when they need to be had for too long a time, then that turns into awkwardness. So it goes from anxiety to awkwardness to resentment to anger, and then then you really have a lot more energetic build-up, because there's all this tension, right? And do you really want to enjoy your relationships? Do you want to enjoy your friendships, or you want every one of the connections you have to be stressful? Basically comes down to that. So it's really important that when you're going through the relationships, the list of 100 in relationships, the relationship with yourself is just as important as mentioning as the relationships with others. So the more you learn about yourself, the more you'll learn about the connections you have around you, right? Which I'll go into in another particular day. I mostly wanted to let people know that there is a relation between people saying how busy they are versus anxiety, and where that comes from. Okay, so it starts off small, where you really enjoy a particular connection, okay, and you want to spend a bit, well, you want that person to like you, all right, and they kind of push into one of your boundaries and make you responsible for something. And then and if you don't have that discussion, then they make you responsible for something else, and then something else, and then something else. And before you know it, you find you've got 10 other people doing exactly the same thing. And then you find that you're doing 99% of all your daily activities for someone else, and you feel so dissatisfied with what you're doing and how things are going that you cannot even find the time to sit down and enjoy that moment with one of your kids where all they want to do is say or show you something that they've done, and you don't have the time in the day to do it because you've got all these responsibilities shoved on your plate that you didn't even agree to, but the discussion never took place to set those boundaries in place, and you just feel overwhelmed. And not only are you feeling overwhelmed, you're feeling stressed, and now that's going to lead to feeling upset because you're going to miss those little opportunities where your children are trying to just to just borrow a portion of time to share their experiences with you, and you won't be able to have that moment back. Once it's gone, it's gone. Which is another reason why I created these groups. Right? Not only do I want to help as many people get there to that level as of the 3 and the 10, but I want to get them there in the first 3 years, preferably. Right? And then help them sustain it in the next 7 years so that it's a habit of sustaining it or growing it. Okay? Because a lot of people that do get there want to do increases. They get a taste of what's there and they would like a little bit more. And that's okay. You're allowed to want more. You're allowed to want things. You're allowed to feel things. You're allowed to experience things. All right? You're allowed to feel the things you'd like to feel. You're allowed to feel the things you don't want to feel. Right? The idea is how you use them. Even anger has a use. If you're angry as to where you are in life right now, you can use that energy to say, look, enough's enough. I need to change these things. I need to put things in place so that our future improves. And then if enough people's future improves, you're going to inspire the people around you to want to improve their life too. Just by showing them the way, it's an example of them seeing evidence that they're allowed to do the same. Because I very much doubt that many of them have ever been told they're allowed to either. Just like I might be one of the few people that have ever said to you that you're allowed to feel these things, you're allowed to want these things, you're allowed to grow. You don't have to do what all the normals are doing. So, anyway, I really hope people have got some value out of this. Please do #value if you did. If you're watching the live, please do #live. If you're watching the replay, please do #replay. And let me know in the comments if this helped you or if there's something I really could have done more on, because I want more interaction from you guys. And if I'm doing a terrible job, tell me if I'm doing a terrible job. I would like to do my absolute best, and the way I do my best is by getting the feedback from you guys to improve. Okay? So, have a great day, and I will see you all tomorrow. Bye-bye.